The corridor smelled like burning lubricant and old ramen, classic signs of a freighter station that had seen better centuries. Hal Voren adjusted the collar of his oil-stained jumpsuit and sidestepped a suspiciously twitching maintenance drone, which hissed something that might have been a warning or a cry for help. He didn't care to find out. Third shift on Elistra IV was soul-killing enough without having to explain to the dock chief why he'd gotten tangled in a rogue cleaning bot again. The freight manifest on his holopad was glitching for the third time that cycle, blinking, cargo, 14,097 units of noodle. In bright orange, he smacked it against his thigh. It responded by freezing entirely and displaying an ad for galactic hemorrhoid cream. Perfect, Hal muttered, because this is exactly how heroes are born. He turned the corner, head down, muttering curses at the pad and its ancestors. That's when he saw her. She was slumped against the cold alloy wall, knees drawn in, the hood of her cloak falling just enough to reveal high cheekbones and skin pale as starlight. Her eyes were closed, long black hair messily veiling her face, and sticking out from the hair, almost too delicately to be real, were ears, long and pointed, arcing back like wind-carved stone. They twitched slightly as he approached. He said, because Hal Voren was never great with introductions, particularly to unconscious, possibly alien women in suspiciously cinematic poses. She didn't move. Now the sensible thing, the protocol-approved, legally insulated, HR-compliant thing, would have been to alert medical services and back away slowly. Instead, Hal crouched and gently reached out, wrapping his hand around hers, intending nothing more than a bit of comfort before scurrying off. Her fingers tightened. Not like a spasm or panic grip, it was deliberate, firm, warm. Hal blinked. "Okay," he said slowly. "Either you're waking up or I just became the protagonist in a very weird romance sim." She opened her eyes. They were silver, not the fake, glittery kind you see in modded contacts, but silver like molten moons, shifting with depth and light. Her gaze landed on his face and then dropped to their linked hands. She didn't let go. "Right," Hal said. "So you're awake, that's good. This is me, Hal Voren. I fix things, sometimes badly, mostly badly actually." "Still nothing. You're probably in shock, or you're one of those silent types who communicates entirely through intense staring." "That's cool, no pressure." The woman tilted her head slightly. One of her ears twitched again. Hal tried gently tugging his hand free. Her grip tightened. "Okay, sure. I wasn't using this hand for anything important. Just, opening doors and eating and basic hygiene." A nearby vending unit flickered to life, misreading the emotional tension as a purchase request. It chirped, "Romantic infusion tea. When words fail, let flavor speak." "No," Hal growled. "No tea, Gerald, shut up." The alien woman blinked once. Then, without warning, she stood up, fluidly, like gravity worked slightly different for her, still holding his hand. Hal had to scramble to his feet to keep up. Oh no, you're one of those aliens." She looked at him again, calmly, not a trace of confusion, as if everything was proceeding exactly as it should. He gestured wildly with his free arm. "Lady, I don't know what kind of ritual this is, but unless it ends with a sandwich and a nap, I'm not qualified." The station's security drone trundled by, its spherical body flashing a bored blue. It slowed, scanned them, and released a puff of citrus-scented air freshener. "Oh, now you care about hygiene," Hal muttered. The alien woman took a step forward, and Hal had no choice but to follow. Her grip didn't budge. The drone spun in place and buzzed. Unusual contact gesture detected. Potential cultural exchange. Potential hostage situation. Potential romance. Please specify. "Hostage?" Hal shouted. "Is that what this looks like?" "You little narc balloon." "Commencing passive observation," the drone replied cheerfully, then beeped once and began following them at a respectful 3-meter distance. "Great, we've got a fan," Hal said. She kept walking, her boots whispering against the deck, weaving through the station crowd that had started parting with growing curiosity. Murmurs rose. A few aliens of unfamiliar species blinked in their translucent eyelids and bowed slightly as they passed. One even whispered something like, "The touch bond begins." "Okay, what?" Hal said, spinning toward the whisperer. "Did you just say touch bond?" "No, no, no, there was no bond, there was just touch. Singular, brief." Relia, because the name pulsed quietly in his mind before he even heard her say it, tilted her head and smiled faintly. "Wait," Hal said, his voice going higher. "Did you just project your name into my brain? That's unfair. That's cheating, that's woe." They had reached the edge of the docking concourse, where a group of station guards stood drinking something out of recycled algae cups. One of them, a reptilian fellow with too many shoulders, dropped his drink. "Relia of the Star Spires," he said. Hal turned to her. "You're famous. This is worse than I thought." Relia gave the guard a slow nod. Then she raised their joined hands. The entire concourse gasped in something between reverence and horror. One of the vending machines short-circuited. Hal stared at her. This is not going to be a normal Tuesday, is it?" She turned to him and finally spoke. Her voice was clear, accentless, oddly melodic. "It begins." "What does?" he asked, dreading the answer. "Our story." "Oh, stars." He rubbed his free hand over his face. "If there's a prophecy involved, I swear I'm jumping into an airlock." Her smile widened, and she squeezed his hand gently. Somewhere in the background, Gerald, the vending unit, softly played harp music. Hal woke up with his hand still firmly held in Relia's. That would have been a mildly romantic realization if they weren't also surrounded by half a dozen blinking translation drones, a nervous delegation from the diplomatic corps of Elistra IV, and what he was almost sure was a priest made entirely of fog. "Tell me again," Hal whispered, squinting at the fog priest, "why we're in the sanctuary chamber and not, say, the sandwich lounge." "Because," said the diplomat to his left, an elderly woman with a voice like squeaking leather straps, "the touch bond, once acknowledged, must be sanctified within a neutral zone under multi-species observance." "I just offered her my hand," Hal hissed. "Like the universal symbol for help, not eternal allegiance." Relia, sitting beside him on a levitating cushion, woven from bioluminescent moss, turned her head and blinked slowly. "Your intention was clear, but so was mine. You didn't even say anything." "Correct," she replied serenely. "I didn't need to." He groaned. "Right, because my brain is apparently set to receive interstellar wedding invitations now." The priest of fog made a gentle woof sound and released a perfumed cloud that smelled vaguely of cinnamon and existential anxiety. The floating cushions all tilted a little more toward Relia. She nodded solemnly. Hal nearly fell off his. "All right," he muttered. "I need a chart, or a diagram, or at least a pamphlet, something with stick figures and arrows explaining which part of this was supposed to lead to sacred union." A nearby translation drone helpfully displayed a holographic diagram, a human hand reaching for an alien S, followed by a burst of sparkles, then a symbol of two intertwined planets. Then a tiny cartoon wedding cake exploded in slow motion. "Nope," Hal said. "That is not how it happened." Relia's grip remained soft but unyielding. He had tried once to pull away. Not forcefully, just a subtle test to see if the connection was some sort of reflex. But the moment he tried, her entire posture shifted, almost imperceptibly, like she'd been bracing for pain. So he let it be. He didn't understand it, but something about it felt real. Heavy, yes. Complicated, absolutely. But not wrong. "Are we going to be stuck like this forever?" he asked her quietly, as the priest sprinkled glowing powder into the air and began humming in a key that sounded vaguely allergic. Relia glanced at him, expression unreadable. "You may let go if you choose." He hesitated. "And you?" "I will not." "Well, that clears things up," Hal said. "It's nice to know I have options." She studied him, head tilted in that alien not quite human way. "You are afraid." "I'm not afraid," he lied. "I'm confused, terrified, hungry, possibly slightly married, but not afraid." Something like a smile tugged at the edge of her lips. You have an amusing taxonomy of emotion. Yeah, well, your people turn hand-holding into international diplomacy, so maybe don't throw stones from your glass nebula. The humming reached a crescendo, and the priest of fog shimmered dramatically, then floated backward into a cloud of itself. The translation drone spun in sync, projecting a rotating hologram of two hands clasped over a field of stars. Everyone in the chamber bowed. "Does this mean I'm a duke now?" Hal whispered, "because I could really use the free parking." "You are now acknowledged as a formal partner within the Nexus Accord," the diplomat intoned. "Congratulations, Consort Vorin." "Oh, stars," Hal muttered. The return trip to the cargo deck took longer than expected because everyone wanted to touch the blessed hand. Hal had to shake at least 40 limbs, paws, tendrils, and one weirdly aggressive feathered appendage. Relia endured it with quiet patience, standing beside him like a statue that occasionally rolled her eyes. Back at his tiny bunkroom, which now had a ceremonial ribbon across it that read shared quarters authorized by Council Code 573D, Hal sat heavily on the edge of the bed and stared at their joined hands. "I still don't get it," he said. "You could have let go." Relia sat beside him. "And if I had, would you be here?" Well, yeah, I think so." She said nothing, just looked down at their hands. He sighed. "Okay, maybe not. But you still haven't explained what this whole bond actually means. Like in practical terms. Do we share thoughts now? Do I get an ear upgrade? Is there a test?" Relia raised her eyebrows. "A test?" "Yeah. Like, I don't know, a compatibility quiz. What kind of dessert are you? That sort of thing." She considered. "I would be something layered." "Of course you would," Hal muttered. "Me, I'm probably a microwave burrito." She laughed then. Not loudly but unmistakably, a breathy, surprised sound like something delicate escaping containment. He blinked. Was that a laugh? Yes. Did it hurt? Only a little. A silence stretched between them, not uncomfortable, just odd. Hal scratched the back of his neck. "So, you hungry?" "I have not eaten since atmospheric insertion." That's the most elegant way I've ever heard someone say they skipped breakfast. Come on, then. We've got a vending unit that dispenses spicy noodles and life regret. They made their way to the food deck, hand in hand, to the stunned silence of other workers. Gerald, the vending unit, beeped twice, then displayed a message. "Welcome back, power couple." Relia examined the noodle cup Hal handed her with the wary respect of someone handling alien technology. "Is this edible?" "Technically," Hal replied, "it's also flammable. But I think that's just part of the flavor profile." They sat and ate in a kind of weird harmony, slurping through silence, sharing glances that were still more puzzled than romantic. But not bad. Hal couldn't help noticing how Relia's long ears twitched with every new sound, and how she watched the flickering lights with the fascination of someone who hadn't yet become bored by ordinary things. "You still haven't let go," he said finally. "I will not," she repeated gently. He looked at their hands. His thumb moved slightly, not in protest but curiosity. "Okay," he said, half to himself. "Guess I'm going to need to cancel that blind date with Ensign Park." She tilted her head. "Was that your previous consort?" "No," he said. "Just someone who laughs when I set things on fire, which, around here, is basically flirting." She smiled again, and somewhere behind them, Gerald played a slow rendition of a romantic ballad, badly. The transport hub was louder than usual, which was impressive, considering it usually sounded like a freight elevator full of angry saxophones. Hal squinted at the departure board, which was helpfully displaying the word error in 37 languages, including one that just blinked suggestively. "Remind me again," he muttered, "why exactly we're trying to catch a ride off station when we just got awarded a ceremonial bunk and a noodle vending unit with a personality disorder." Relia adjusted her coat, the hood draped loosely over her ears, which still twitched every time a high-frequency announcement crackled overhead. "Because emissaries from my world have arrived." "Right," Hal said. "And they're here to what? Congratulate us. Shower us with gifts. Offer me a position as ambassador of accidental diplomacy. They're likely here to retrieve me, she said flatly. Hal paused. Retrieve, that's such a neutral word. It almost doesn't scream abduction at all. She looked at him unreadable. I left without sanction. I'm of royal designation. My decision to bond without council approval is unprecedented. Unprecedented, you mean frowned upon. I mean punishable. Well, he said, attempting a grin, maybe they'll go easy on you since I'm clearly irresistible. Irresistibility is not a recognized legal defense in my culture. That's disappointing. That's like half my entire personality. The air around them shifted as a nearby portal gate powered up, arcs of shimmering green light forming a halo that crackled and throbbed. Out stepped three figures clad in clothing that glowed faintly, in colors Hal couldn't name, somewhere between ultraviolet and apology. Their features were elegant, serious, and slightly unsettling in their symmetry. All three had the same long ears, though none of theirs twitched. Relia's grip. It was not planned, Relia said evenly, but it was chosen. Hal cleared his throat. Hi, I'm Hal, human from Earth. I fix things, mostly very badly. The emissary blinked once. You have initiated a permanent cultural sequence that predates our most sacred code structures. I also make a really good grilled cheese, Hal added helpfully. There was a silence thick enough to be sliced with a plasma scalpel. One of the emissaries turned to the others and began whispering in tones that made Hal's ears itch. They don't approve, he said under his breath. They don't understand, Relia replied. To them, bonding is either orchestrated by the council or it doesn't exist. There is no room for spontaneous connection. Then what happens now? They will test you. Test me, Hal said, like a pop quiz I haven't studied. I don't even know your alphabet. It won't be academic. He gulped. Please tell me it's not physical. Relia's expression was almost apologetic. Oh stars, Hal muttered. Later that cycle, he found himself in a room filled with soft blue mist and floating hexagonal platforms, while a voice from above read instructions in a dialect that sounded like someone playing the oboe backwards. The trial of resonation, Relia explained softly. You must demonstrate compatibility through empathy, balance, and response. I've never been compatible with anything in my life. I once broke a toaster by looking at it too confidently. She stepped back, arms crossed, ears still. The platforms lit up. The floor shifted, and Hal fell forward onto what he would later describe as the most judgmental trampoline in the galaxy. He bounced, flailed, screamed something about union rights, and finally landed on a disc that began floating through the mist at high speed. Challenges came fast, emotional resonance simulations, hypothetical crises involving interstellar diplomacy and a confused jellyfish ambassador, a test where he had to describe Relia without using the word weird, which was much harder than anticipated. Then came the worst part. The question, a glowing interface hovered in front of him. It asked simply, why did you hold her hand? Hal stared at it. Because she needed help. The words flashed red. He frowned. Because I didn't want to leave her alone. Still red. He bit his lip. Because I didn't think, I just did it. And then she didn't let go, and now we're here. And honestly, I don't know what it means, but it feels like something real. And that's rare, so I held on. Because maybe, just maybe, she held on too. The screen pulsed, then turned green. Hal was dropped unceremoniously onto a padded surface that smelled like gratitude and citrus. Relia was waiting. She walked to him. They accept your answer. Was it the grilled cheese part? He asked, dazed. No, it was the part where you told the truth. A moment later, the lead emissary approached. We will not interfere. The bond is acknowledged. Its nature is irregular. But so is the universe. Wow, Hal said. That's actually kind of poetic. Did you rehearse that? No, the emissary said. It was written by committee. They left through a glowing door that hummed softly as it sealed. Hal let out a breath and turned to Relia. Please tell me your people only test suitors once. She smiled. Only once, unless you wish to bond again. Let's survive lunch first, he muttered. On their way back to the dock, Hal noticed a small crowd watching a replay of his trial on a public holoscreen. His bouncing phase had already been turned into a meme by a 12-limbed teenager. That didn't take long, he said. You are now legend, Relia said solemnly. Oh stars, Hal groaned. I'm a viral sensation in a culture I don't understand, bonded to a woman who glows when she's angry, and I still haven't gotten a decent sandwich. She squeezed his hand. But you have me. He sighed. Yeah, I've got you. And possibly several interstellar legal obligations, but mostly you. She didn't let go. The ship they fled in was technically classified as a Class D cargo orbiter, but that was being generous. Its official name was the Venerable Whisper, though someone had spray-painted "Don't touch the toaster" over the hull in 3 languages, one of which was probably extinct. The control panel had a personality implant named Marjorie that greeted Hal and Relia with the voice of an overly enthusiastic aunt, and a memory cache filled with questionable lasagna recipes. Good morning, travelers, Marjorie chirped as they entered the cockpit. Warning, 3 out of 4 engine stabilizers are currently operating under protest. Please refrain from sudden philosophical questions or sharp turns. Hal dropped into the co-pilot seat with a groan. Why is it always me who ends up on ships that sound like they need therapy? Because you radiate mild chaos, Relia replied, seating herself beside him, her posture regal even in a chair that squeaked like disappointed bubble wrap. She's right, Marjorie added. Also, you're statistically more likely to attract minor mechanical hauntings. I don't know what that means, and I refuse to acknowledge it. Behind them, the ship disengaged from the Ellestrand docking ring with all the grace of a collapsing shopping cart. Marjorie adjusted thrusters and aimed for a quiet patch of stars, somewhere between legal space and we won't ask. Hal tapped the console. Okay, so we're fugitives now, sort of, I think. Depends on whether the Empire filed the paperwork. They won't chase us yet, Relia said. They still believe this is a diplomatic misunderstanding. Well, sure. People hold hands on accident all the time and trigger socio-political chain reactions. Her ears twitched. I wasn't referring to the misunderstanding. I meant their belief that you are harmless. Oh good, Hal muttered. Everyone thinks I'm just a harmless sidekick until I mess up enough to prove them wrong. A soft alarm beeped. Marjorie displayed a blinking notification. Incoming transmission. Encrypted. Probably someone important. Or an interstellar prank. Put it through, Relia said calmly. The screen flickered, then revealed a figure draped in silver robes, seated on what looked like a throne made entirely of humming crystals. He had long ears like Relia's but sharper features, and eyes that didn't blink so much as evaluate. Relia, he said, you've complicated things. Hal leaned into view. Hi, I'm the complication. The figure stared. Is that the human? Yes, Relia replied. He is, less impressive than I anticipated. Hal pointed at himself. Rude. This is my brother, Relia explained. Commander Tarian. Oh great, Hal whispered. A royal sibling that never ends well in sci-fi. Tarian continued. Your actions are being interpreted by the high houses as rebellion. Your presence with this offworlder has disrupted 3 major predictive alignments. Our oral historians are weeping. I made a historian cry once, Hal said, but that was about improper tool storage, not cultural collapse. Relia straightened. I made my choice. You may not understand it, but I felt something real. You felt, Tarian said, with the tone of someone invoking a traffic violation. We don't operate on feeling, Relia, not when it risks political cohesion. She's not an algorithm, Hal snapped. She's a person. One who was smart enough to get the hell out of a system that treats emotion like malware. There was a long silence. Tarian looked directly at Hal. You've been linked to my sister for 4 rotations, and you already think you know her. I don't know everything, Hal said. But I know she makes this tin can of a ship feel like home. and I know I'd rather crash it into a sun than watch her get dragged back to some crystal throne and ordered to smile for the Empire. Tarian raised a brow, dramatic. It's my thing, Hal said, along with tool incompetence and irreverent snack commentary. Tarian turned his attention back to Relia. One chance. Return willingly, and I will ensure your bond is nullified with minimal disgrace. Relia didn't blink. No. Then you will be hunted. Relia nodded. Let them come. The screen blinked off. Hal let out a breath that had been hiding behind his ribs. Okay, that could have gone worse. I mean, he didn't threaten to vaporize me specifically, so I'll count that as a win. Marjorie dinged. Incoming signal from border sensors. Multiple ships approaching. Definitely not a social visit. Of course not, Hal muttered. They never just want to borrow sugar. Relia moved quickly, fingers dancing across the controls. If we slingshot around the Lyra V nebula, we can use its particle field to mask our exit vector. You're hot-wiring us through an uncharted nebula. Would you prefer waiting for my brother's fleet to politely arrest us? No, Hal said. But can we at least agree on snacks before we enter potentially fatal radiation clouds? Marjorie chirped, preparing emergency rations, spicy oat cubes and paradox water. I miss sandwiches, Hal muttered. The ship bucked as the engines roared to life. Boosting toward the swirling haze of Lyra V, the viewscreen filled with ribbons of red and gold plasma, curling like smoke and promises. Hal felt Relia's hand grip his again, steady and sure. You okay? He asked. She nodded. Yes, are you? I'm on a haunted freighter running from space royalty with a woman who may or may not be too good for me. So 80% okay. She smiled faintly. Good. A shockwave rippled through the hull as a fleet broke from warp behind them, lights flashing like warning stars. Marjorie announced, entering uncharted nebula. Please hold on to something emotionally stabilizing. Relia didn't let go of his hand. He didn't either. The hall buzzed softly, the glow from the holographic banners casting gentle waves of color across faces both alien and human. Hal stood beside Relia, their hands entwined as they awaited the Council's final decision. Around them, the diplomatic elite of the Elistran sector murmured, their expressions a mix of curiosity, skepticism, and cautious hope. The lead orator stepped forward, her voice clear and resonant. Relia of the Star Spires, Hal Voran of Earth, your union, born in the unlikeliest of moments, has challenged traditions and expanded understanding beyond precedent. After much deliberation, the Council hereby acknowledges your bond as a symbol of interstellar unity, a beacon for cooperation among species and cultures. Hal blinked. So, does this mean I get a title? Or at least a badge that says Intergalactic Handholder? Relia smiled, the familiar twitch of her long ears betraying her amusement. You may choose your own title, she teased. He laughed. I'm taking that as a yes. The room erupted in applause as the couple stepped forward. News feeds from across the galaxy broadcast the moment live, turning what once seemed an accident into a celebrated event. Holoscreens showed images of their journey, hand in hand through nebulae, escaping fleets, and navigating cultural minefields, all softened by Hal's running commentary that now enjoyed near-legendary status. After the ceremony, as dignitaries mingled, Hal and Relia retreated to a quieter chamber. He looked at her, fingers still intertwined. You know, I never imagined my life would go from fixing freighters to basically being an ambassador for Don't Judge a Hand Hold. She laughed softly. And I never thought I'd find freedom by refusing to let go of a stranger's hand. Hal squeezed her fingers gently. Funny how the smallest gestures can change everything. She nodded. You've taught me that sometimes. The most profound bonds aren't in grand declarations or ancient codes, but in the